I'm back again to tell you all about Sleepy Drew, a family-owned small business where comfort meets style for moms and their little ones. Me and my girls absolutely love matching our pajamas, and Sleepy Drew makes that even more fun. Their adorable PJs come in 2-piece sets or zip-ups, and they're comfy, durable, and even have antibacterial qualities. These pajamas are designed by a mom with moms in mind. My listeners can even receive a 15% discount on their first order by using the code QUIETConnection, all one word, at checkout. Shop now, and when you get your jammies, post a picture on social media, tag Quiet Connection, and let us know why you love Sleepy Drew. Make bedtime the best time with Sleepy Drew. Hi, welcome to Quiet Connection, a podcast dedicated to ending the stigma around postpartum mental health. I'm Chelsea. In this episode, Doctors Tim and May delve into their personal journey through parenthood, shedding light on their unique perspectives as professionals in the medical field. We discuss the difficulties of getting healthcare in rural areas and the potential of telemedicine. May gives us a deep dive into her personal life prior to having children, which significantly impacted her postpartum mental health journey. I know this is a longer episode, but stick with it. Tim and May's whole story hits closer to home than you may expect. Throughout the episode, they emphasize the need for support and understanding through the birth and postpartum experience. Let's dive right in. Hello. Today I'm here with Doctors Tim and May. How are you both?
We are waking up.
Yeah, we're good.
I'm not a morning person. I'm trying to be, but we're good. We're good.
That's good. Yeah, I can't keep track of where all my guests are. I'm on the East Coast, so it's 9 a.m. here. Is that where you guys are at?
Yes.
Sadly, yes. I hate to admit
Yes.
it.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, though, I'm not a morning person either, but I was up at 6 a.m. with the kiddos, so here we are. We got to get rolling with the day. But I'm very excited to have both of you on. I think this is going to be a really cool perspective as you are both doctors and you've worked in different fields of family medicine. And I could say everything that I know, but it would be better coming from you guys. If you could introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what you do.
You get to go first this time, Tim. It's usually me.
Okay, so we graduated from medical school in 1992. We actually went to medical school in Canada, where we were raised, and immigrated to the United States in 1994, and did a full range rural family practice in Oregon for almost 30 years. So everything. Like I had 12 years of obstetrics. May never did that.
Because I like sleep.
Exactly. We worked in the hospital in the ICU. We did basically everything except ER. We did death investigations. I mean, it was great. It was an awesome way to learn medicine. So we got to see a lot. It was an interesting community, technically underserved and quite impoverished, especially in pockets. So we landed there right at the very beginning of kind of meth exploding. And so we worked all the way through that, and then into the opiate crisis, and then, what we're dealing with now with fentanyl. So we've seen a lot of stuff. I mean, I was at work yesterday. I was saying to somebody, I said, I don't really know what I haven't seen, which sounds kind of dumb, but something comes in and I'm like, yeah, I remember seeing that before. So we've had a lot of experiences, and it's been really great. And May's largely retired from clinical practice. I'm still seeing patients 2/3 time kind of thing right now. And then we're doing podcasting, which we just love, and get to meet really cool people like you.
Yeah. May, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, I grew up in a lower middle class family in northern Canada, in a little town called Flin Flon, Manitoba, up near the polar bears, but not quite in the circle. And just grew up, had a normal little childhood. My dad was a bush pilot. I guess that's not normal, but to me it was.
No, I was going to say, I've never met one.
My mom was a stay-at-home mom. And my sister is quite a bit younger than me. So I was kind of like an only kid for a lot of my childhood. I got to do all kinds of fun things. And my mom always encouraged me to do whatever I wanted, that I had the ability to be whoever I wanted to be. And I got that feedback from my teachers. And I was like a good kid, always wanting to people please, straight A student, and top of the class in the little town that I grew up in. And wanted to be a doctor from an early age, probably around 10. I got really enthralled by this book I read. I'm trying to remember the author. But anyway, I thought this is cool. I wanted
Danielle Steele.
No, it was not
There's lots of doctoring in the Danielle Steele novels.
I did. Hey, that's where I got my sex ed from. Judith Krantz, I think, and Danielle Steele. But anyway, I think it was Elizabeth Morgan. The Making of a Woman Surgeon was the book. Really. And I'm like, yeah, I want to be a surgeon. There was a lot of things I wanted to be, and I have a really artistic side. But as soon as my family heard doctor, it was like, yes, you're our doctor. And that caused a lot of personal struggle because there was a lot of other things going on. I should also throw in there that from 4th through 6th grade, I was sexually abused by a teacher. And that got dealt with in a really weird way, small town stuff, kind of swept under the rug.
Yeah, well, small town 1970s. So
yeah, just
a little different world.
Yeah.
It's like, we'll make this person go away. They'll get retirement, and then, I see that teacher for the rest of the time that I lived in town. Even when I went to college when I was 17, I graduated at 17. And when I would come back in the summers and work occasionally, I'd be walking down Main Street in town and see him across the street or on the same side. And I would freak out, run to the other side, and back then it was just dealt with in a really weird way. And I'm bringing all this up just to kind of shape my background when we start talking about things in the future. So I had that, a lot of, I would say in my mind, family pressures to please. And then my dad was gone for about 6 or 7 months of the year because he also did this flying for a mining company. And so I had this really tight relationship with my mom and my grandma. My grandparents were instrumental in my upbringing. So it became this kind of codependent family dynamic that's not necessarily healthy. It worked for my grandma and my mom, apparently, but I got kind of dragged into this thing. Anyway, by the time the time I was in high school, I developed about 10th grade. I developed an eating disorder, became anorexic, and that was my way of controlling things that I couldn't control, and it gave me power. And I felt, that this was my thing. And off I went to university when I was 17, and that was horrible and hard because I wasn't socially ready. I'm trying to think how many miles. It was like about 450, 500 miles away from where I grew up. And I was a small fish in a big pond. I had a couple other friends that went to the same city in Saskatoon. I lived in residence in the dorms. It was horrible. I hated it. But anyway, my eating disorder, my depression got worse, and it turned into bulimia. And I struggled. I hated it. Undergrad, wanted to quit. But I kept pursuing and persisting because, it was my mom, who's a strong woman and who's very intelligent. And she never went to college or university. She could have and done anything as well. But she's like, I think that a lot of what this was, her sort of living out her dreams through me. It's like, oh, you got this. You can do it. Just be tougher. I got into med school when I was 19, which was a little unusual. And in our program in Canada, you could get in after 2 years of undergrad. I tried after the first year, and when I was only 18, I did the interviews, didn't get in. But I got in when I was 19 to medical school. So there I am in medical school, still having this depression and really like, I don't know what I want to do with my life, but I'm doing this. That bulimia is getting out of control. I'm clinically depressed, but I don't really know that. And then I experienced a nice triple whammy to my knee, an ACL blowout with a bucket handle tear of my meniscus, the unhappy triad, it's called, playing girls intramural football. Because, girls do play football. And,
Apparently not very well.
Anyway, that all happened, and it was in the fall, and I was in my second and a half year. And at that point, my grades were crap. I was struggling, and we had to do this big set of final exams for the past 2 years before that, year and a half, on all of it's called systems. So the cardiovascular system, the respiratory, they bunch them all up, and then you do one big final exam after the whole culmination. It was 18 months, and I was like, I'm going to fail this thing, because I got this knee issue. I don't even know if I want to be here. And I was still struggling with the eating disorder, kind of hiding that. And at the same time, a friend was kind of figuring it out and calling me on it. So I dropped out of med school with the backup plan that they were very graceful and said, take some time off, get your knee dealt with, get your life under control. We can let you back in, because once you're in, we want to keep you because of the selection process, but get your crap together, get your shit together. Basically, they're very supportive. And then when you decide that you want to rejoin the class, you can. And there's a lot of students that have done that. So I'll forward ahead a little bit to the part where I got my sort of knee looked at. I was doing rehab. I didn't have surgery. And then I went through this intense counseling process one summer, outpatient program for eating disorders. Along the way, my friend in school, who also struggled from bulimia, kind of called me out, figured it out, got me in touch with a family practice doctor that treated that, got me into this program. So one summer, I told my parents, I am not working this summer. I'll do some side jobs that I can, but I'm staying in the city, and I'm doing this program. And it was very insightful and helpful, and really helped open my thought process up to like where a lot of this stuff came from. So I worked through that, and it was great. Of course, I wasn't completely cured, although I was doing very well. And then I went back that fall to med school and got in to what was Tim's class. He had actually been in a class behind me. So I got into his class in med school, and that's actually where we met.
That was going to be my question.
And then everything was perfect.
My Prince Charming came along to fix my life. Yeah. So
that's right. Because the way to get your life fixed is to let somebody else do it.
Well, yeah. And that we joke about it now, but in the back of my mind, I was just looking for a savior and a hero. And along the way, so we got to be good friends. We sat together in class. He was funny, made me laugh. We started to do things together like rock climbing, and we just became actually best friends within a year. The other important thing that was happening at the same time in my life with all the bulimia was kind of still there, coming and going, and I was still struggling with that, but it was getting better. But I was also questioning life, and like I had really an important thing, to talk about is that at one point of my lowest of lows with my eating disorder, I remember just literally like an alcoholic, sort of hovering over the toilet bowl, looking there going, God, if you're real, I need you in my life to help me because I can't do this anymore. And at that point, things started to happen where I started to become friends with a couple of girls who were very strong Christians in my med school. I'd gone to church with them and really started seeking some spiritual guidance and looking to God because I had felt like I couldn't do this anymore. And so while that's happening, my spiritual journey, my Christian journey is growing. And I say that because Tim, as we're friends in school now, was grew up in a strong Christian family. He's a Christian as well. And so we start exploring that, and I'm asking more questions and sharing. And that was really important to me and in our relationship. So this whole eating disorder, bulimia, depression thing is getting better, but it's still kind of there. And as time went on, and I think we were friends for about a year, I started to fall in love with him. And then there's a cute little story about how I secretly wrote him these love notes and left them on his car where he parked and in his locker. And he figured it out. with the help of oh gosh, there's about 20 of us that would have lunch together in the common area. And for a while, they Tim started to think it was someone from high school, or then for a while they thought it was some guy that liked him. But then anyway.
Oh, you weren't signing your notes? You were just writing?
No, they were anonymous. They were like, I was creating these anonymous notes about I see you and I like you and you know who I am, but I'm too scared to say who it is. And then I started creating these poems that gave away a lot of personal stuff about myself that he didn't necessarily know, like things that I did growing up, to see if you could guess. So it was kind of like a whodunit clue quiz thing. So this is who I am. Can you figure it out? Well, anyway, he finally figured it out. I was trying to drag it out till Valentine's Day this one year. And then we actually were going out one night to a concert at this church. And he's like, I think I figured out who wrote these little secret notes. It's you. And I'm like, yeah, is that okay? It's kind of in this crazy, innocent, girlish way. But he's like, yeah, that's pretty cool. I think I like you. And so we officially started dating and dated for a year. Man, that end of that year of dating, lots happened. So I had my ACL repaired and I was in the hospital for a week. The same time, he proposed right before that, because we were getting ready to graduate from med school and enter what we call the match. So if anybody knows medicine, what happens is when you graduate, you have to figure out where you're going to do your residency. You interview with places. They also rate you on a scale of candidacy, and you go into this computer matching system. But if you're a couple, you can actually do that together to guarantee that you both end up in the same program or city. And so I had said to Tim, if we're going to do life together and we're going to be in the same place and not have a long distance relationship, and, there's a high likelihood if we don't do the couples match, we're going to end up in different places. And then this is kind of done. So are we going to get engaged or married or what? So I kind of threw out the bomb. So anyway, we got engaged, and then I had my ACL done and repaired. I think that was in March. Anyway, it was a whirlwind because I laid in the hospital. Back in that day, they kept you in the hospital for a week for that. Now it's like a day procedure. You're in, you're out, right? Yeah, I was laid there for a week planning our little wedding. We got married 3 months later, 4 days after we graduated med school.
Oh my gosh, you guys.
So we graduated on a Thursday, got married on a Sunday, did this cool honeymoon for 3 weeks, moved to Edmonton to start our family practice residency. And then the wheels started to kind of come off then. And that was tough because at that point, as interns, the first year, we were both on call every third night, which meant we stayed in the hospital. We stayed awake pretty much all night, caught a few hours of sleep if we could, right? And we were on different call groups. So there was three of us, right? 3 or 4 in a group. And we were on not in the same group, which meant our schedules obviously didn't sync up. And he would be up one night, I'd be gone at the hospital another night. Sometimes we would pass each other at home sleeping. And with this, problems with, lack of sleep, new marriage, stress, my depression got a lot worse. My bulimia had really gotten much better. And the important thing also along that year before we got married, I chose to forgive the teacher that abused me from my heart, which once I said, I've never really thought about forgiveness and doing that. That was the thing that really healed my bulimia. It was not an instant thing, but that forgiveness and releasing that power over me really was all about me getting my life back, and him not having control over my life and controlling me, and really healing. And so at this point, I'm just struggling mostly with depression, I was ready to quit. And my sister moved in with us after 6 months because she needed a place to land. And that was another big thing in our marriage that was tough. So finally, Tim, being the supporter that he was, but he's got his own stuff to deal with. I mean, I don't know. If we weren't Christians, we would have probably gotten divorced, or you would have left.
Yeah, but
it was a
also
big freaking mess.
It also kind of exemplifies the importance of just like physically you have to do certain things to function normally. We've been down every single one of these rabbit holes as far as, different diets and exercise and, what medications should be used, what shouldn't be in our careers and obviously on the podcast. But, the thing that's been neglected is sleep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this idea that you're not going to suffer consequences and, by not sleeping, especially, and then by having really intermittent sleep where you kind of sort of catch up and then never catch up. I mean, it's like emotional waterboarding, right?
Well, they do it to Navy SEALs for training to
they do
torture them.
Well,
Sleep deprive them. So there you go.
In rendition,
That's basically what happens to us in training. Now it's changed a lot. Thank goodness.
It has, but the problem is this: is that you can't get away from it. Like there's certain jobs where you don't get a sleep schedule. So you got to figure that out when you're on your days off. Like if you are a Navy SEAL, if you are, lots of military jobs, lots of medical jobs, it's the way it is. I mean, if you're on call in a tertiary care hospital and you're a vascular surgeon, you're not sleeping.
No.
Right. And so,
and it's important to,
but it's super important as we get into
my story with what happened through pregnancy. The sleep deprivation, people don't really, I think people and women kind of look at it and go, yeah, that's important, but it is really huge and a massive factor, especially when you already have a setup for depression, mood disorder, something else going on, maybe not such good support systems. The sleep that's a tipping point. And so
yeah,
that's a massive thing. So anyway, back to the not sleeping for the first year. Sister moves in and she's actually undiagnosed bipolar. So she's going through her own struggle and she's thriving and doing well now. But we had that. We had this new marriage we were working on. I have me who, Tim's supposed to be my knight in shining armor. And subconsciously, I'm thinking that he's going to make me happy because my life has sucked to this point. And now I have God, but I'm still struggling. And finally I'm like, okay, I'm like a doctor now. This is just BS. So I did seek out a family practice doc and I'm like, you know what? I think I need help. Well, lo and behold, we just come out with Prozac not too long before that. And it was the new wonder drug, right? And studies had shown that it actually worked really pretty well for people with eating disorders and obsessive compulsive tendencies.
Studies sponsored by whom?
Right. So I'm like, great.
Well, they also Prozac is a big one for new moms too.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can go down that rabbit hole if you want. I'm more than happy to.
Oh, we'll get into it. I'm sure we will. Sure we will.
So I'm like, all right, put me on it because I need something because I can't live like this anymore. So I started on the Prozac, 20 milligrams. I can't remember. It took the usual to work, but it did. It started to work. It really cut out the obsessions in my brain for food that were lingering, that was still there. I was just thinking that, the part that I talked about before about the forgiveness really was a key factor. And I really want to emphasize that. But I still had these little twinges of, I could just go back to my controlling food and purging and just throwing up because then it would give me some control. But the Prozac really put the final kind of clinches on shutting that down. So that was really great. My mood started to get a little bit better, but it still wasn't normal. And then we got into our second year of residency and with some rotations that we were doing in rural medicine, some days I wouldn't even show up for. I would just lay in bed and call in sick. And some of my I remember this one preceptor in family practice, like, maybe you should revisit if you're cut out for medicine. You just don't seem to have the stamina for this. And that punched me in the gut. And part of me was like, damn, no way. I'm a tough girl. I can do this. I will suck it up and show up, even though I don't want to. And I was still even questioning whether at this point in my life, I am a resident, I'm about to finish and be a doctor on my own in my own practice. I'm still questioning all of this, but I'm like, this guy says I might not have it in me. I'm like, screw you. So
Yeah.
I sucked it up, and showed up and finished. And then we were, fast forward, I would say we were done. And I thought, okay, let's give this a go. And if it doesn't work out, I don't know, I'll figure out something with my life. We won't get into it now, but we ended up leaving Canada and coming to the US just because of some of the restrictions that the Canadian government had put out at that time when we graduated, and made it tough for doctors to kind of move. You pretty much had to stay wherever you did your training. And so the US had a big opening because managed care was happening, and they wanted a lot of primary care docs because they needed those. And we ended up in Oregon. And so we started our practices in two different places. I was in a different clinic. I didn't have good mentorship. I was working part-time. I'd made a conscious decision not to do obstetrics, even though I really loved it in my training while I was in the hospital, because I knew the lack of sleep for me was a factor. And if I had to be up in the middle of the night and then show up at the office first thing in the morning, you don't get to call in and go, I was up delivering a baby all night. I have had no sleep. And oh, by the way, I can't come to work. You don't get to do that. And I knew that I could not. Tim, however, was doing OB, and we still took care of our patients, like you said, in the hospital, so that we would often round on them sometimes before we had call, and we did ICU on the weekends. And so I worked 3 days a week. That was considered part-time, and that was enough, but I wasn't thriving. I wasn't in a good place, and my depression got worse again. And I got pissed off at Tim because I'm like, I'm unhappy. My life sucks. This isn't what I thought it was going to be. And you're not making me happy. And guess what he said?
Well, I said that I didn't promise to make you happy. I promised that I wouldn't leave you and that I would provide and I wouldn't sleep with the neighbor. Happy's your problem.
He said, happy's your problem.
Happy's not my problem.
Anyway.
So I'll be here tomorrow morning. I'll be here tonight. If you want to discuss anything, that's fine. But, if you're looking to me for happy, then you're looking in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did some more soul searching. Never went to counseling. We were going to church groups. We had some good mentors. I read an amazing book, a couple of books about, where's God in your life when it hurts, and happiness, and really changed my perspective on, what? It's okay for life to suck, and it's okay to be unhappy. And once I realized it was okay to be not satisfied with things, it was kind of freeing. And it sounds kind of bizarre, but it really changed my perspective.
Well, yeah, but it's because people have been sold something that's completely ridiculous. This idea that you can, it's, as much as I love the founding documents of the United States, the pursuit of happiness is completely insane. You don't pursue happiness. You pursue goals, and happiness is the side effect. So you pursue loving relationships. You pursue, growing your family or growing your wealth or whatever it is, and you figure out, oh, now I'm happy. To produce, to pursue anything emotionally is not only ill-advised, it's potentially dangerous. In my opinion, the root of every addiction is you're pursuing some emotion that you can short circuit. If I just have one extra shot,
manufactured.
Yeah.
Right. And the fact is that the happiest people are usually the most self-disciplined, are usually the people that have figured out the big relationships in their lives, are usually people that live for something bigger than themselves. That's like, there's principles of happiness, but those principles are exactly the opposite of what sells, because what actually makes you happy isn't, being self-disciplined and going to work when you don't want to, and not going to bed angry with your spouse, and actually, giving these values to the next generation. No, what makes you happy, clearly, because we're going into the Christmas season, is a Lexus with a gigantic red bow on. Duh.
But talking about what makes you happy. So literally I went through another sort of, actually I'm still kind of in it, this big midlife crisis, but I was listening to Mel Robbins' this summer as I'm pulling weeds, and her book, Take Control of Your Life. And that really hit me because it's an amazing, I like the audiobook. I think people should listen to it if they haven't, or read it, because there's these cases of people and there's someone in there that, well, you can relate to, everybody can. But for me, it was like this whole thing of, if I just do this, if I get to the next step, if I just pursue this, once I'm there, it'll make me happy. For me, that's what it was always the thing. If I just, get into med school, if I just become the doctor, if I just get through, once I'm the doctor, then I'll be happy. Okay, once I get married and I'm a doctor, then I'll be happy. Then my life will get better. And then it was like, well, maybe once I have my practice going for a little while, it's just the next thing, and it just would never make me happy. And that, and so then the next thing is, let's just have kids, throw kids into that.
I was going to say, was that just
because adding two selfish people to two selfish people, that never has ever been bad.
Yeah.
That's
that
never
ends badly. No,
that's never been a challenge for anybody.
This is a big thing for me. Part of my story with even the entangles with the postpartum. I felt like shit in our pregnancy. We'll talk about that, and depression, but just this pursuit of happiness and what it means is I think a big thing too. But that's kind of okay. That's the leading up to the prepartum. But antepartum story. I mean, my life, that's my life. And we all have baggage in our lives. Everybody's life has shit in it, and some more so than others. And it's a complex weave, right, of our experiences, our upbringing, our perceptions of the world, our spiritual. I mean, everyone has some kind of spiritual belief, whether
they think so or
you're
not.
Aspiritual,
Right.
You're an atheist, you still believe in nothing. Whether you're a Christian or a Buddhist, whatever that's a big part of our life as well. And then all the experiences, everyone's is so complex. And I share all this before we get into the baby story and the fun part, is that, people have looked at our lives and they see us, and we have this great marriage, and we've had ups and downs. And, twice I've wanted to pull the plug, and I'll be like, I don't think I love you. I think it's over.
Well, yeah, but that was when you were hit on the head.
Stop.
Clearly.
So people look at that, to where we've gotten, being married 32 plus years, and they're like, oh, you're successful. Your kids are great. Everything must have been so easy. And I'm like, no, it was a total shit show. There's shit in there, and it's just perceptions. And so, you get through the crap by hard work and overcoming, and it shapes you, and it makes the success look so much more beautiful on the other side. But, you don't make a diamond by happenstance. Diamonds are built under pressure, intense pressure, squeezing the hell out of that thing with force. And that's the only way you get a diamond. And so it's the same with anything, whether you're, the gold medal athlete in the Olympics, you just didn't coast your way with no work.
You didn't just show up.
Yeah. And so it's,
you're not like Joe Buck, who gets to become a broadcaster, a sports broadcaster because of your dad.
So I want everyone to know that all this shit we all go through as kids and adults and young adults, and your life can look like total hell. But, it's the journey and the growth and the struggling. It's all worth it, because, man, the end product, even though you can't see that far ahead, is, so worth it. And we still continue to have crap that we deal with, but
it's a lot easier, and there's a lot less. And that's it. The bottom line in that stuff is you got to be willing to do the hard part, and you have to be willing to own it. And, we see a lot, at least in popular culture, is people don't want to own anything. And it's really a problem. Like when you look at the whole sort of genesis of the Prozac Nation kind of stuff, it's like, okay, guess what? It's not your fault. You're sad because you have a chemical imbalance. And then magically, all of a sudden, we went in psychiatry, where the only treatment in psychiatry was psychotherapy, was talking to somebody, which actually was probably somewhat helpful, especially if you had a really good connection with your therapist. 2, it's not your fault. You have no responsibility. Just take this pharmaceutical and you'll be fine. Well, that's unbelievably harmful because you, like, regardless of what traumas you've had and how victimized you may or may not have been, you still have to own that, because whether you like it or not, you do own it.
And what you're saying strikes 2 chords with me. One, there's actually a brand that I'm an ambassador for called Own Your Stigma. And it is all about, like, it's not your fault that you have a chemical imbalance in your brain. That part's not your fault. But when you own it and you say, yeah, I have whatever it is, I have OCD, I have postpartum depression, I have whatever, and I can work on that and I can still function and I can still be myself, but I have to work to do that. You own it and you work with it. And the other thing that strikes me is with the medication, when I was going through my postpartum journey, which was very, very traumatic, and I was very, very ill. I had a very complicated relationship with medication. I didn't want to take the medications that they were prescribing me. And I had it explained to me that the medication was a tool to help me access my therapy and my coping skills and the work that I needed to do to get through these things. So I think we're on the same wavelength. It sounds like we're on the same wavelength.
Exactly.
No, that's
exactly. And that's what I would always tell patients too. It's like the work you need to do is the work you need to do. Counseling, support systems with professional, with a psychiatrist, a counselor, your church group, your small group, your best friends, all of that is where the work happens. You're right. The pills, sadly, have been way overused, but are just a small tool to take. I hate the word take the edge off, but it makes it possible for you to be able to get up and get out of bed and do the work.
Yeah, I wouldn't be here if I didn't take the medicine that they prescribed me. I would not be here. And it was in accepting that that I was able to do the work in therapy.
Yes.
And now I can use those skills.
Well, it's tools.
And
it's a tool.
Same for me. But
it's tools, right? I mean, the Egyptians, apparently, we don't know, maybe it was space aliens, but the Egyptians, it appears, used slaves to build the pyramids. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's one solution to that problem. I'm thinking cranes would be a better solution. And so
probably.
And so and that's the thing. It's like what tools should you use in the toolkit? Well, all of them.
Yeah.
But we're using all of the tools, understanding that there's still sort of medical engineering, so to speak, that we're trying to get to a path, and you're going to have to walk that path, and you're going to have to, go past certain mileposts to get there. And whether or not that's 2 medications or 3 or 0 or diet changes or all of the above, it doesn't really matter. And we get super tribal in a lot of these worlds where it's like, well, I never use that because this is what, and I'm like, really? I mean, I don't prescribe chemotherapy because I'm a primary care doctor, but if I got Hodgkin's lymphoma, I'm pretty glad it exists. You know?
Right. And there was the same. So I know we're going on like side trails here, but like it was the same thing. The psychiatrist told me, she's like, if you were a diabetic and the doctor prescribed you insulin, you wouldn't say, no, I'm not going to take that. She's like, this is a life-saving medication for you. You are actively suicidal right now, and that's not you, and that's not your fault, but you need something to help you learn how to cope with that. So I feel like this is a great window to weave into. I found a window, and I want to know, once you made that decision, because your mental health, your previous history of mental health issues and trauma so play into your experience as a parent. But when you made that decision to like, okay, the next thing I guess is kids, what did that look like for you guys? Was it just like a sit down, like, guess let's just do this? Or like,
No,
was it a little more complicated than that?
It was complicated. And man, we talked about this before we got married. I had babysat so many kids when I was younger. I'm like, had my fill, and I was happy to just try to, push on and pursue and have this great career and forget kids. Tim wanted kids. He came from a family of 4 kids. And so we had to talk about it quite a bit because I was like, I don't know if I want any. So that took a while. And once we came to the agreement that it's like, yeah, kids are important enough to have in our life and give us, it took me sort of seeing the riches that it brings instead of just having this, I would say for me, a selfish life of just myself with no children in it. And everybody's got to make that decision for themselves, obviously. But I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do this. And I'm like, yeah, fine. I think I'm ready. I also felt like I was never mature enough. Now, I know it sounds funny. Here I am, this woman I was 31 when I got pregnant. Or when we had our first child, but I'm like, I don't think I'm mature enough yet. I don't know that I know what I'm doing. We're both doctors. We're both, have PhD levels of training in school, and we're the ones that take care of babies and have the expertise. But I never felt like I had that self-doubt. That's me. Yeah. And so, I would look at patients and people later that would come in doubtful, and I'm like, hey, I share where I had been. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, I mean, we all go through that. So yeah, we made the decision to have the kids. We went on a trip to Costa Rica. I got pregnant. Funny story. I also got super sick from this parasitic infection of this bad lobster we ate. And we came home and I was so sick. He has iron gut. It went through him in 2 days and he was fine. I had to go on these antibiotics, and I'm taking them because I had this horrible Yersinia infection, it's called, and I'm taking these antibiotics. It was Cipro, and I found out I was pregnant, and I'm like, my child better not have 2 heads because I've been on Cipro.
Well, she had 3, but we fixed that.
Yeah. Anyway,
bonus.
We had a cat. I'm emptying the litter box. I'm like, I'm gonna get toxoplasmosis from the litter box. Anyway, the normal stuff. So, it was kind of a cute story that when I found out I was pregnant, there was a church retreat. We had all piled into this car. There was like 3 couples, and all 3 women were pregnant and did not know it at this. And yeah, so when we got home, we all kind of found out, and our kids were all born together within about 6 weeks of one another. But I hated being pregnant. I felt awful right from 6 weeks because I was an athlete. I was fit, and now my body all of a sudden's blowing up, and I had a lot of morning sickness, and the whole time I just hated it. My body was doing weird things, and I remember someone who struggles with body dysmorphic disorder. Mm-hmm. Anyway, this is not cool. And that was really tough for me, and I would say that I don't think that I really fell into depression again, but I sure felt like shit. And I tried, I was very active and did the best I could, but I had a ton of morning sickness. Thankfully, we had access to some really good medications. I would do Zofran IV straight. Yep. And it would go in the office and I'm like, just shoot me up. It literally was not even done injecting that. And I'd watch it go into my vein and I could feel way better. And that was pretty neat. I could keep working.
Now, if I could just interject a tiny bit just about the power of being in a small town. I was at a car show with one of my cars, and it was this rock festival. And this guy walks up to me, and I don't really know who he is. And he just starts, like, he's almost weeping. And he's like, "You saved both of my kids."
Oh, my God.
And I was like, okay.
Who are you?
My car is green. And And then his wife walks up, and I kind of like, it's like my head is just like spinning, because this is 25 years before. And I figured it out, and I was like, holy shit, I know exactly who this is. And what had happened is this woman had like the absolutely worst, like the true hyperemesis, like where you're getting IVs and you can't leave the hospital. And we're like, what are we going to do? And ondansetron, Zofran was brand new. It was only used in chemotherapy at that point as an anti-chemo nausea, anti-nauseant for chemo. And so I called up one of the perinatologists, and I'm like, this woman's already had a couple terminations, because like literally she's going to die if she gets, pregnant with this kind of nausea and vomiting. And they said, well, this is what you got to try. So we set up this whole program of giving her ondansetron and got her through 2 pregnancies. And, now these kids are, 25, 26 years old. And I bump into this guy who I don't recognize anymore, because we both changed so much. And it's been, I only saw him with his pregnancies, which is his wife's pregnancies, which was a short period of time. And then I put it all together, and I was just like, that was crazy.
Yeah.
We had those experiences all the time in primary care, because like in these small towns, because you ran into these people and you're like, there's a kid I delivered and he's going to jail.
Oh my God.
Like that kind of stuff, right? And it was just wild. And so the power of this medication, it's a little bit of a bunny trail, but it really is amazing. The connections we had with people, and the connections you didn't even know you had, because you did this thing. It was your job. You were trying to be as professional and as helpful as possible, and then you don't realize that 25 years later, it's just this profound effect on this family. This family exists because we dared to use a novel medication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just really cool.
And then you knew I need Zofran.
I'm like, we have the hookup for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So exactly. I love Zofran. I totally feel you.
And this is another little brief bunny trail, but just to throw this in there, the scary thing is then there's some medications, that are novel and new. And we were always taught in our program to really be wary of new medications until they've been tested and out for a long time, because stuff happens. And my mom, so remember, we were from Canada. I think things were different in Canada than the US. But my mom, being pregnant in the 60s, was offered thalidomide for her severe hyperemesis. And she's like, I don't know. Like, it's new. I'll just tough it out. And she was damn sick with me and ended up in the hospital a few times, but passed on taking thalidomide. And
it's a good thing she did.
It's a blessed thing she did, right? So because we
probably wouldn't be married. Somehow legs and arms are important to me.
I mean,
imagine that.
We're not going down the ableist rabbit hole
we're not.
here. No,
but so
I understand what you're saying.
But thankfully, Zofran has proved to be not like the case, and has been a lifesaver for so many of us that have had to take it.
The difference with Zofran is we had years and years of.
Anyway,
the way we use medications is still different. Sometimes it's not. We can go. That's a whole other problem. But
so the pregnancy was I made it through. I had really long labor. The labor story is kind of fun. We're at.
I sense sarcasm.
Yeah, this nurse that we worked with, was 10 years older, was having her birthday party, and we were at her party the night before. That night, and I was like, starting to have contractions, and I'm like, I think I'm going into labor. Actually, because she was born exactly on her due date, and so the day we're at this party Saturday night, because her due date's Sunday, the 23rd, and I'm like, I think I'm going into labor, and it's just I'm having these Braxton Hicks and contractions. Made it through the party, and Sunday morning we got up to go to church, and I wasn't feeling good. We went to church. I made it like half an hour, and I'm like, I'm out. I'm in labor. So Tim's like, well, because he was doing OB, he's like, I don't know that there's any room at the hospital because I think it's full, like the OB unit.
Because I had just delivered another baby that morning.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I forgot. He went and did a delivery before he went to church. So get this. This is what happens. We go home. He's like, let me find out. I'll call the hospital. and see. And then he goes, I'll check you and see how far along dilated you are so we know when to go in. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be weird. Because no, he had not done any, gynecologic pelvic exams up until that point. This is my husband.
Just recreationally.
Yes, exactly. So I'm like, okay, you're officially being a doctor here on. So he did. But I mean, who else could say that they do that, right? Only other physician couples. So he checks. He's like, oh, I think I was about 3 centimeters. And I was like, toughing it out. He called the hospital. They're like, yeah, we got to get some people out. Some people are going home today because it was probably around 11 in the morning. Like, if you can just wait till around 3, then you can come in later.
Oh my God.
So this is small town life back in the 90s. So we did my contract. So we got in there, and I was going to do the whole natural thing. I'm like, I don't want drugs. I'd read all the books. I have these great different natural breathing techniques I had done. I'm an athlete. I am just I don't want anything. Well, what happens is we get to the hospital
and you're invincible.
I got to the hospital. I remember I had my music set up. I had my breathing techniques, and I'm like, okay, damn it, I'm going to do this. Well, I started dilating like, oh my gosh, from 3, I got to like, I think I went from 3 to 7 in like an hour. It was ridiculous. The contractions were nonstop. I'm freaking out. And I looked at him and I'm like, just get me the drugs. I don't care.
And it's so funny because
I'm like, am I a bad person? I'm like trying to do this. Does that mean I'm not
finally,
strong and tough? And
I
he's
just
like,
looked at her and
seriously?
I just said, it's just like,
but here,
I think, I'd put in tons of intrathecal anesthesia, as with my obstetrical patients. I said, look, get an epidural or the intrathecal, which I don't think we do anymore, is awesome because you don't get numb like with an epidural. But you get this really great pain relief from the contractions. And so, it's a spinal tap basically. And I just said, get the drugs. I need a nap.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. My partner was napping the whole time too. So yeah.
You ass. Anyway. But I went from 3 to 10 like super fast, and I felt like a failure because I wanted to do it natural and I couldn't, and I was tough. And right then, even in that span of time, I was just like, oh, so disappointed in myself because I felt like I'd failed at something I wanted to do. But thank goodness for those drugs because it was hard. And so now looking back, I just tell people, it's the same thing I tell people, who are struggling with any of that, whether it's nursing, because there was that too. It's like, you do your best, but you know what? These things are there for a reason. And anyway, I later got over myself, my inadequacies, but I pushed for, oh my gosh, hours. I pushed for 2 hours. But let's just say that if you can see Tim's head, and if you saw his family, you'd understand what was happening. I have a small pelvis. And then I had this doctor when I was, 19, do this pelvic exam once and go, oh, you're going to have all these troubles and if you have babies. And it kind of freaked me out. Now it made sense why, because if your husband is part of the large head our daughter's head was very huge. And so I pushed and I pushed and I pushed. And for 2 hours.
Oh, man.
And I actually enjoyed, because it was more like a sport for me, because being an athlete, I enjoyed actual labor more than being pregnant. But after 2 hours, our obstetrician was really good. He's like, you could do a section, but I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to. Let me take a break. We took a break for an hour. He went and delivered another baby. I think you watched football.
It's November. What else am I going to do?
Yeah, I was gonna.
Anyway, it came back.
Who were you watching? That's what's important.
No, that I can't remember.
I can't remember either. So finally, after another, hour and a half of pushing, our daughter was born. And this is so cute. We had to tell this funny story really quickly. So I'm pushing, here's the other thing that people need to know. Okay, here I'm a doctor. I've delivered babies. I know all the things, but I'm pushing for a while. And they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm pushing as hard as I can. They're like, no, you're not doing anything. You're an athlete. What the heck's going on? And I'm like, well, I don't want to poop and I don't want anyone to see it. I've got all these nurses that, I know that we work with because it's a small town. I'm like, I'm just trying to control it. Me again, trying to control it. They're just laughing like, stop. You're just get over yourself. So once I figured out, okay, May, you're a doctor. You're not any more special than anybody else. It's no big deal. Then I was pushing properly, but there was that part, which was kind of funny. Well, I was kind of trying to hold it in while I was pushing. Well, that didn't work good. So yes, even doctors think about that stuff too. And then to her, so her head's through, and the first thing out of Tim's mouth was, "Oh no," and I'm like, "Uh-oh, what's wrong?" Yeah, but this, she's got like cleft lip and palate. Does she have a birth defect? And then he goes, "Oh no, it's my dad," meaning her face was so squished up, it looked like his dad. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you ass." And everyone just kind of laughed because as soon as he said, "Oh no," he just paused, right? Anyway.
Yes.
There was a big fright feeling. And then I was just like mad and she was born, and a beautiful 8-pound, 4-ounce, healthy, chubby, roly-poly little girl who looked like a freakish alien from hours of pushing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she looks like a weird alien. So our daughter's born, and we go home. Well, so I get released from the hospital, and this is, everything was going okay. We get home and we take her in the little car seat. It's winter. She's all wrapped up. And we got home and we sat there and we set her in the car seat on the sofa, and we sat down and we just sat there and we looked at each other. We looked at her. She's sleeping, and we're like, what do we do? And he's like, I don't know. Like, I think we just leave her. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think we should do anything. And then we started laughing. We're like, here we are. We're two doctors. We just had a baby. We don't know what to do with her. I mean, do we like take her out of the car seat, but she's asleep? We don't want to wake her up. Do we just leave her alone? Like, and we laughed. We're like, oh my gosh, it's super funny in a way because we're supposed to have all the training again, and we don't know. We don't even know, should we wake her up? All that stuff. So we had all these little experiences for the first little while because it's all new. It's fresh for everybody. It doesn't matter. People would go, well, you guys are both doctors. You must have it all figured out. And it's new to everybody. Yeah. Thankfully, kids are very resilient, and they survive. I mean, I had her in this bouncy seat. She was probably like, I can't remember how old, 6-8 weeks, this bouncy thing. And I had it on the kitchen counter while I was cooking, and the thing vibrated right off the counter onto the floor. It bounced right off. And I'm like, it landed upright. She was still in that thing, and it was still bouncing across the floor. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a bad parent. And then I was like, oh shit, she's still bouncing and she's kind of smiling. She was more than 6 weeks old because she was smiling, probably 3 months. Anyway, kids are very resilient. But yeah, that happened. That was a stupid move.
Oh, we've all had one of those. We've all had something like that.
Exactly. So doctors do it too.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember when exactly my mood started to go downhill and suck. So I hated being sleep deprived right from the get-go. I tried to I was nursing. That was difficult for me. I struggled just like everybody else. I thought my boobs were going to explode, and I didn't know how to like relax and let my milk come in. And Tim and I are both like trying to figure it out. And I'm like, whoa, this is does not feel good. And I was just thinking, how do other people who without any medical education deal with this and figure it out?
Yeah, it's because they have no medical education, so they just let it happen.
That's probably right.
But I say this so often. The view of it is that it's supposed to be so easy and natural, and it is so not.
So I was like this tiny little girl.
But that is a really good point. Because there's become this moral crusade around breastfeeding. And, clearly breastfeeding's better. Great. Okay, that's fine. We got reams of data. Yippee-ki-yay. But it doesn't mean that it's easy for everybody, and it doesn't mean everyone can do it. Some women can't breastfeed, which is fantastic that there's this backup plan. And it's not like the backup. It's not like you go from you're breastfeeding your kid and they're going to Stanford to you're bottle feeding them and they're Jeffrey Dahmer. But that's the moral argument that people try to make around this, and it drives me absolutely crazy. The issue is this: you're going from a child that is literally starving to death to a child that is going to thrive. Now they get there's most of the breastfeeding benefits are not that profound. Like, let's be really honest. Like, the immunity stuff is helpful. The bonding is helpful. But, guess what? If your kid is freaking out because they're starving to death and you can't nurse, there's no bonding going on anyway. Bonding. So that's out the door. Yeah. So how about you have a kid that sleeps through the night and actually is growing? And I have talked so many women off the ledge, just like I've sent women to lactation consultants, and I understand it's important to them. And it's, whatever. Again, there's lots of tools in the toolkit. You got to pick the right tool.
Yes.
And it's not one size fits all, because sometimes it doesn't fit. And then it looks funny when you try to put it on.
Yeah.
But for somebody who's highly educated, has high expectations for themselves, perfectionist, has to do it right. It was tough for me because I put all this pressure on myself I'm supposed to be the perfect parent and the perfect mom and do all the things. And with the breastfeeding, after like 3 months, with Olivia, with 3 months, my milk started to dry up. And I'm like, damn, I guess.
Yeah, but Yeah, but look, at 3 months, you've got 99.9% of the breastfeeding benefits anyways.
Absolutely. And, he would tell me that, but it was like, but I really wanted to do it longer. Truth be told, it was a pain. I hated it because I was always leaking and dripping and my clothes were getting wet. And I was like, I don't really like this at all, but I know it's better for my baby. I hated it.
It can be a detriment to your mental health too. Yes. The hormones that release when you're breastfeeding can contribute to postpartum mental health disorders.
Absolutely. For me, so let's get to that.
Which is really crazy, because for some people it makes them feel way better.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Isn't yes.
Like that oxytocin rush is, you release oxytocin during orgasm as well. Like, so there's some, it's really wild how the interplay of this stuff works, right? It's like, why do the vast majority of people, if you give them an opiate, they go, there was something reinforcing about that, but largely I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Yet there's this subset of people that they take one taste of an opiate and it will consume their life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just like the subtleties of brain chemistry must not be ignored.
No, absolutely. But so your breastfeeding journey did not go the way that you planned it. No, it wasn't what you liked,
I didn't like
you had pressure on yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thing that was happening was thankful, the first 2 weeks was so hard with lack of sleep, because I'm a person that needs a lot of sleep for my mental, for me, for my mental health, for my history of depression. I went off of my Prozac when I was pregnant. I discontinued all my medications. And so now here I am. I haven't restarted anything. I'm not sleeping because, just getting up every couple of hours, every 3 hours. I'm up nursing. And then I remember about the 6 week mark, I'm like, oh man, I'm not feeling good. And I'd be talking to people, and people would say things like, hang in there. I know it sucks now, but it's all worth it. And someday you look back and you just miss these times. And I'm like, that is not helping me now. This is bullshit. No. This totally sucks. The whole, you'll look back with fondness on this one day. No.
Yeah, no. It completely diminishes what you're going through.
It did.
I can't stand that.
Oh, I was so pissed. And I'm like, I will never say that again to someone else. When they're walking through this journey, I'm going to go, it sucks. It's really horrible. Yeah. If you hate it, you hate it. It sucks.
That's the only thing.
There is hope, right? But yes, it sucks.
The only thing more assholey than that is when somebody's like 16-year-old dies in a car crash, and you go, well, you realize there's a higher purpose for this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the higher purpose is me beating the living hell out of you.
Yeah.
Because clearly that's the only solution.
That's why I
right now.
don't like I don't like the term silver linings for that reason. Like when people say, like when I like, let's say like that patient that you treated, that I don't even remember if we mentioned this when we were recording yet or not, but we'll get into it. The patient that you treated that did complete suicide from a postpartum mental health disorder. Where's the silver lining in that? I don't see a silver lining in suffering like that. I do see growth. I see not in terms of someone taking their life, but I will acknowledge growth and purpose, but I'm not going to say like it was all worth it. I'm not like I don't like that. And it's the same thing. Like you hate where you're at right now. That's fine. You can hate it. Know that it's not forever, but you can hate it right now.
Yeah, no,
I went on a tangent.
Yeah,
no, but you need to, and I think the way you said that is wonderful. Because somehow it's the fallacy of the fair world. Like the world is fair. So if I had this unbelievably unspeakable loss, then I'm going to have something that offsets that. That's at least as good or better to bring it to even. Well, no, maybe in the light of eternity there will be, but on this earth I don't see that very often. Mm-hmm. I mean, I totally agree with you. There's purpose, there's growth, there's redemption, there's all of these meta narratives that are way bigger than the experience you're in. But to somehow say to somebody that's lost a child or had a miscarriage or is going through a really tough mental health struggle, that somehow in the grand totality of the metric of the earth, this is going to be worth it more than if you wouldn't have gone through it. Like that means you're God. That means you have foreknowledge that no other human has.
Right.
Or you're full of shit. You have two choices. Which one do you think it is?
I'm going to go with full of shit.
Yes.
For 500? Yeah.
I'm sorry, you did not say what is full of shit.
What is full of shit? Yes. But yes. So yeah. No, girl, I feel you with the people telling you, oh, you'll miss this. No, I won't.
And you know what? I still don't miss it. I look back and I'm like, that freaking sucked. That's the reason I only had 2. But so anyway, because once we started having kids and planning, I was like, I want 3. I want 3 kids. Well, it didn't happen. It didn't happen for a couple of reasons. So the Big Head Club, I ended up with a pelvic hernia, undiagnosed until my second pregnancy from all that pushing and pelvic trauma. The other thing I should throw in there. So my stitches that I had from having all that, a couple of them ripped. So what that meant was my repair healed improperly. Anyway, that's another, thing yet to be fixed because of all the fun things you get to go through. But so I'm trying
it's
to
really
remember,
not fair.
It's not
I'm
fair.
sorry, it's not fair. It's like, well, enjoy all the changes that happen to your body. I'm going to the gym.
Well, okay. So that is pretty much what happened. This is back in the day. He took 2 days off work and then he was sitting there at home and his mom actually came down from Canada to help out, which was great. But I'm like, what are you doing here? There's nothing for you to do. There's no reason to take time off and hang out at home. Just sit here and watch us play with the baby at this point. So he went, I'm like, just go back to work. You're way more useful there making money. And I should throw in from the fact for me, back in the day, there's no such thing as maternity leave. It was like you either quit your job or so in medicine, there was no support. I was like, I'm having a baby. Okay, see you later, patients. These other doctors will cover you. But my colleagues were like, there was no pay. There was no anything. I had to officially on paper quit my job. That's what happened. And then I got rehired later when I went back. But yeah, I had to quit. So let's talk about the depression that developed. I'm trying to remember. I just know that by 6 weeks, I'm feeling like shit because finally I figured out the nursing. Baby's a little cute thing. She sleeps a lot, but getting up all night has been hard on me and my mood starts to tank. I think your mom had gone home at that point and I'm just at home and I'm like, my life's changed. And my mood started to get worse and worse and worse. And I started to get depressed. I didn't start back on my medication. And can you remember how many months that was? I think it was like at 3 or 4
No,
months.
it wasn't past 3 months, I don't think.
Well, I was getting bitchy and cranky and unhappy, and he's just living life and feeling good and doing his stuff. And I'm still, I'm trying to go outside for a little walk with the baby and do things. Um, but I'm not recognizing, and he is not recognizing what's happening, but my mood is getting really bad. I'm slipping into clinical postpartum depression. I thought it was closer to 4 to 6 months. I think it was quite a ways out. Well, anyway, one night I get up. I think I fed Livy, put her back to bed. And I almost have like a psychotic type of break where I'm just like, I can't take it anymore. I can't do this. I'm hating my life. I can't take care of the baby. My husband's like, I just lost it. And I grabbed the keys to the car and I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm done. I went outside. It was like 2 a.m, get in the car, I think I grabbed my purse, keys, get in the car. I start driving. So we live in the woods. We live 5 miles out of town. Town is only 8,500 people. This town rolls up the door, at 7 o'clock. There's 2 stoplights in town at this point, and everybody goes to bed. There's nothing open past 7. It's 2 a.m, and I'm driving into town this direction, and I'm like, frick, like, I think I'm out of gas. I'm going to have to get gas. And what am I going to do? So I'm like, okay, I got to go to the other direction towards the highway. I'll turn around. I'll go. I'm going to leave. I'm going to stay at a hotel. I'm going to go to the coast. I'm going to go south. I'm just leaving and I'll call home later. Well, when I realized I don't even have enough gas at first, I'm like, okay, I got to buy gas, but I don't know if I'm even going to make it to the next gas station. And I look in my purse and I have like totally forgotten my credit card or any money. So I have like no money to get gas and I'm trapped. And I'm like, I can't even like run away. I can't even successfully run away from home. And I had to go back home. I pull up in the driveway and I remember bawling and freaking out in my driveway that I'm a freaking failure because I can't even run away from home because I can't plan it. I can't control it. And I walk in the house and I open the door and everyone's sleeping. The baby's sleeping. My husband's still sleeping. No one has even noticed that I've been gone. I haven't been gone that long, probably a half an hour, maybe an hour tops. No one's noticed. I lost it. I wake him up. I'm screaming. I'm psychotic. I'm like freaking pissed because I ran away and you didn't notice. Like, I can't do this. And I come uncorked. And I can't even really remember. To me, like, that is like a blur in my life. But I know, I can't remember how he exactly responded. But I know what happened consequently was like, holy shit, you're psychotic, you're depressed, you got postpartum depression, you've been on these antidepressants and you had this history, like, what the hell? And so it was at that point that the two doctors finally recognized that I am like losing it. And I get back on my did I go to counseling though? I did not. I'm like, okay, I think I can do this. I'll just start back on my medicine. We live, it was tough because there was a lot of pride. There's not a lot of support. I shouldn't say that. There was support probably, but not in the way that I wanted someone anonymous because we lived in a small community. I didn't want people to know. I thought that I should be doing better because I'm a doctor. And so, yeah, I did not seek out any professional counseling because we're like, just get on my medicine. Things will be okay. Start exercising. Things will be okay. What do you want to say?
Yeah, but that said, like, even, when you live a minimum of 45 minutes away from anyone that you would want to see.
Yeah.
Then, like, it's half a day.
Yeah.
If you have an hour,
yeah.
Like by the time you have to take the baby someplace, or I have to take a day off work, you're going to be driving at least an hour and a half or 2 hours total. You're going to have another, like, it's half a day is consumed with every appointment. I mean,
Right.
it's a major consideration. Yeah. And so, like, in these rural areas, and I'm going to give a little tiny shout out for this is why, this is what telemedicine was made for.
Mhm.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff we shouldn't do on telemedicine. There's a lot more we should do. Fascinatingly, I mean, I would do 100 telemedicine visits a day during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
COVID killed it. I thought it was going to blow telemedicine up. And the issue was patients hate it, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
But from a counseling perspective, it's a complete no-brainer. Like
Yes.
you can extend resources in a way that would be really profound. And I will just really, for your listeners, really advertise this. Everything is a tool in the toolkit, and sometimes it takes all of the tools. You're not rebuilding an engine just with a torque wrench. You have to use a lot of tools. Probably the most significant tool is really good therapy from a therapist that you trust that has a good therapeutic relationship.
Yeah.
That is the engine hoist with which you pull the engine out of the car for which to diagnose whatever and rebuild the problem. So the medication is there to serve therapy and serve you, not to fix the problem, but to help uncover things so the therapy works. Get therapy.
Yes.
Like, we figured a lot of this stuff out ourselves, which is really dumb.
Well,
it's
but you
really
dumb. You were doing it at a time that mental health was not talked about in the way that it is now. I mean, I still think there's a long way to go. But like you said, you were doing this in the 90s. You're doing this. Mental health wasn't like, not everybody had a therapist. Not everybody knew about depression and anxiety and OCD. Some of these things they didn't even have acronyms for yet. So, like, you weren't dumb. You were working with what you had.
Plus, there's also the fact that we actually had a ton of training in counseling and psychiatry, psychology, thankfully, in our program that we did. So there's part of this thing and I did a lot of it in my practice with patients. So there's that whole thing of that I'm trying to do myself. Does that make sense? It's like, well, I know this. I do this with patients. I should be able to figure myself out. I guess what I was trying to get to is, though, if you are a person that's highly trained in counseling, say you are a clinical psychologist, a psychiatrist, a physician that has expertise, pick your thing. You counsel people, say you're a pastor, even though you would be able to say, okay, if that was someone that I was counseling, look at your situation like myself, and I go, okay, if I was counseling me, I would be able to say, well, this, compassionately do this, don't do that, but whatever. But when it's yourself going through it, you can't, I guess you have to let go of the pride and go, you know what? You can't sometimes fix yourself. It's okay to get help.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to say is even the professionals need help, and that's okay, because we think we can just control everything and analyze ourselves and fix ourselves and tell ourselves what to do, but it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And it's so many things because you're so used to trying to have control over things.
That's been,
as well.
And that's a theme.
Yeah.
That's a theme for your whole life.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's what I struggled with, but I got better. It was, first child was, like everybody else, everything was like a learning process. There was ups and downs and feelings of sort of suicidal thoughts, but no real action. But that was tough. And then a second child came along 18 months later. I was, pregnant and went through this similar thing again. And thankfully, we recognized. So I went off my medication while I was pregnant. Our second had horrible colic. It started at 6 weeks. Nothing satisfied him. He screamed and freaked out, and he was up all night. And then my sleep got disrupted again, and I started to cycle back into that depression. I've got 2 kids running around, and I started to get depressed clinically significantly with postpartum depression again. And at that time, we recognized it's like, okay, get on your medicine. Let's do these steps. And we kind of just came up with our own little plan of what I was going to do. I had a lot of support through our church community and small groups, but I could have done better looking back on it. If I were to do that again, I would absolutely get some professional counseling and help. It would make it so much better.
How much of what you experienced or what helped drag you down was expectation based? Like if you would have had
was
no
gonna-
expectations,
I
like
know.
none.
I was
Like if
just
you would've
gonna.
because I think we have talked about this a lot on our own podcast about how like this whole concept of you can have it all or you can be it all is just complete nonsense. Like
Yeah.
you can't. You can only do one thing at a time. You can't do everything. And then there's this because we really coming out of the 80s and being educated, the paragons of female physicians were, they had 6 kids, they were on city council, they worked 197 hours a week, and you just sit there and you just go like, this is complete, like it's completely insane. Like it's complete. Like, do they have a harem of partners that just like take care of everything else? Because you can't do it all. And so, how much of it was like you had set expectations that were completely impossible?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I remember that narrative. I can't remember if it was some reason Tina Turner sticks out in my head. I don't know what it is, her or somebody singing and dancing about, women having it all. But yeah, it was like
you're strong and you're invincible.
Yeah. That wasn't Tina Turner, was it?
No. I'll find that.
I know. I was going to say, I'm not sure.
Helen Reddy.
Helen
I think
Reddy.
that's Helen Reddy.
Helen Reddy. I am strong. I am invincible. I am woman.
Okay.
You may be strong, but you aren't invincible.
But it was that whole
Nobody's
message.
Invincible.
That whole message, because that women can have it all and do it all and be it all.
I don't think I've heard so much of what you've said throughout your whole story and talking about like your mental health and talking about your upbringing and talking about your experience in medical school and all of these things. And just like Tim was saying, like these expectations of yourself, that's not unique to you. That's not unique to me. That it isn't even necessarily unique to gender. I mean, I've said this a million times on my podcast. I identify as non-binary. I was raised female. But I don't think that narrative just fits us. But I think as mothers, that narrative is pushed on us even harder. So we are expected to have the career, have the kids, have dinner on the table, have the birthday parties. And that's the mom. And dad is such a great dad if he takes the kids to the park. And dad is such a great dad if he makes it through grocery shopping with the kids in the cart and nobody's killed each other. And
pretty much.
Yes.
That is a hard thing to deal with. And so, yes, I think you did have these expectations of yourself. I have the same expectations of myself. And so I can sit here and tell you, and I'm not a mental health professional, but I can sit here and empathize with you and tell you like, girl, you did the best you could with what you were given. And with everything that you were up against and everything that you dealt with, you did the damn thing. You did it. Your kids are alive. Your kids are thriving. Your kids are here. But yeah, like Tim was saying, like you put that expectation there. But I think part of it would have been there anyway. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
oh yeah.
So
absolutely.
So, and to sort of like round this whole thing out, like you're talking about, you guys have said so many times, like you are doctors, you have years and years of experience, and you have all of this knowledge, and you still didn't know what the hell you were doing as parents. I am an educator. I before I was an educator, I was an infant teacher. I took care of babies for 6 years for 10 hours a day. And when I had my kids, I still didn't know what the hell I was doing. It is not the same thing. And then when you add postpartum mental health disorders on top of all of this, it just makes everything so much harder. And when you say like, I'd go back and I'd do it differently, I think we all have an element of that, but I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair to ourselves because we're not the same people that we were then.
Exactly.
I guess one of the biggest things that I want to know from both of you, and May, it sounds like you're not practicing as much anymore, but Tim, you still are. How did that experience for you guys, or did that experience for you guys change how you approach treating women in the perinatal and postpartum period? Did that change the way that you, I guess, approached your practice at all?
Well, for me, I'll do mine first, and then I'll let Tim share what his story. It totally did, because, I had. I'll say that every experience I've had has totally changed my opinion. I'm in menopause now, and I used to look at women and go, these women are whining about hot flashes. They just can't suck it up. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, have one of the worst cases of menopausal hot. I have so much empathy. So every experience that we go through totally shapes and opens our eyes to people, and we can empathize so much more because we've walked their walk. And so when I would, any experience, but especially that stuff with antepartum, postpartum depression, having kids, just all the struggles of raising everything, I would say to my patients, people, that are contemplating having kids, that are going through all of it, it's just like, I get it. And I would share, and then we were always told doctors shouldn't share personal stuff. But no, people need to know you're real. I would share as much as is appropriate with the person. And it totally impacted my doctor-patient relationship, their trust in me. But they're like, oh, she gets it. She's gone through this too. And I could really help and live life and walk that patient's walk with them so much better than if had I not gone through those experiences, good or bad. And they don't have to be exactly the same struggles, but you or I would totally be able to relate more. Everything I've gone through, I've had all kinds of orthopedic injuries and surgeries. I mean, once you're the patient as the doctor, you totally can see life on the other side of the table. And it's life is just walking through waist deep through humanity with people. That's what we've always said about medicine. And when you, are just show people that you're just as human and you've had these experiences as well, you can relate to your patients so much more, encourage them, help them, offer what advice and what you've learned.
Yeah.
What do you want to share, hon?
Well, I had a patient I delivered, and it's actually her second child, suicide.
Yeah.
And, with a medication, she overdosed on a medication that I gave her back, when we had antidepressants that could kill you.
Yeah.
And, that was horrific. And it was pretty unexpected. It was a second child. There's issues there because you still have to care for a child, plus you're pregnant, plus then you have a newborn, et cetera, et cetera. And kind of appeared, from my perspective, to come out of nowhere. I mean, she had been followed up normally. She was doing well. Baby was growing. Everything seems good. And then all of a sudden it's like, boom, I got a call from the ER and she's like literally being resuscitated. So how do you deal with that? I guess the thing is everybody's broken and everybody needs support, and everyone is broken in a different way, and everyone has different strengths and weaknesses. And, the thing with pregnancy, early postpartum, and raising children is you can't do it by yourself. Mm-mm. And there's different levels of support from, spouses to grandparents to friends and it's just really important that you have this network and that you have relationships that you've cultivated where people can kind of check up on each other. That's really, really, really important. And as much as I gave a giant shout out for telemedicine, there's absolutely no replacement for real human contact, which we have lost a lot in the last, couple decades. So, I mean, that would be my encouragement, because, you see some of these really smart matronly grandmothers and they can kind of see through you. It's like, what's going on, sister? I know there's something else going on there. And, we need way more of those people.
That is, no matter how many episodes I do and no matter how many people I talk to or what they do or who they are or whatever, the theme is community and how we need it. So yeah, community telehealth is great. Get a freaking therapist. No matter how you can get a telehealth or in person, get a freaking therapist.
You can't do
Yes.
life alone. You need to find your tribe, your support system. Drop the pride.
Yes.
I mean, I'm talking to myself here too, just as much as everybody else, because we all need to hear it. And yeah, there's a beautiful thing when you connect with people and they can help you do life that in ways you never thought possible. So
I literally feel like I could talk to you guys for hours, and I feel like we only scratched the surface. But I really do. I feel like there's so many more questions that I have, but I think to sort of bring us full circle, I usually have one of two questions that I ask, and I think I know which one I'm going to go with for you guys, because I really want the unique perspective of people who work in the medical field and who are working with new moms and birthing people. What do you hope that the people, for my listeners who are in the thick of it right now, who are really starting to question, like, is there something wrong with me? What do you hope they take away from your story?
you are not alone. You're special and unique, but you're not that unique, and that your story has never happened to anyone else. So what you're struggling with, look to your left or your right, someone's struggled with it as well. And while you might feel alone, you're not, and there's help and there's hope, but that will only happen just by having the courage to share it, to vocalize it to someone else. Because if that person, maybe hasn't walked that walk, they can help you get help. But don't suffer in silence. Know that you're not alone. Know that even the people that look like they're the strongest and the toughest and who've got their shit together have also struggled with that too.
Well, I think part of the setup for this expectation problem is that we think that somehow being a mother isn't enough, when it's the most important thing in the entire world. Human beings, our society, our civilizations are all centered around raising children because they should be. So the most important job isn't being an attorney or a neurosurgeon or a stockbroker. It's being a mother. And that's really the truth. And rearing children is the most important thing you can possibly do. So remember, you're struggling with the most difficult and the most important job in the entire world. That's it.
I would
That's
totally
enough.
echo
It's
that.
enough to be a mom. That's enough.
I love the sentiment. I like that it is enough. Being a mother is enough. Something that was repeated to me and that I repeat to a lot of the people in my support group is, it feels hard because it is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And you are exactly who your children need. And that's enough. I want to thank both of you for taking the time this morning, even though we're not morning people, to chat with me and to share your story, and to also just be so vulnerable, May, especially with your history, because it really does impact your journey as a mother. And I know it's going to resonate with some people, a lot of people. And yeah, just thank you so much for sharing your story with me.
So happy to. I mean, that's what I said, right? We're all here with our experiences to share and help each other out and help each other do a little bit better, and know that you're not alone. So we are so happy to have been here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much, Tim and May, for the opportunity to experience your story from both partners' perspective. And thanks for sticking with me through my technical challenges. Sometimes the internet just does not want to cooperate. You can keep up with us on Quiet Connection by following us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Threads at Quiet Connection or at Quiet Connection Podcast. You can help our community grow by reviewing and sharing our podcast episodes on social media. To share your personal journey, you can contact us through our website, quietconnectionpodcast.com, or by email at quietconnectionppmh@gmail.com. Join us next time when another story is told and you realize you are not alone. I see you.